Hey, Ryan, it's been 2 years at this point, since you've had a chance to compete. I'm wondering, does it feel real yet, or do you got to wait till Saturday night and you're actually in the cage to know that this is going to happen?
Well, this part feels real, I guess. This isn't normal, so yeah, sure. It's just good to be back, man.
Yeah. What's the journey been like for you, man? There's been all kinds of COVID and fight cancellations and just trouble getting opponents. What's it been like during this time away for you?
It's been frustrating, to be honest. But it's been, obviously, no more than everybody had to deal with for the last year. But fortunately, the gym's been fine. Everything's been fine. Family's good. Everyone else is good. So no complaints there. The COVID canceled the first event, the one against Ricardo Lamas. That was a shame, obviously, for everybody. Rescheduled in August. Everything good to go. Training. Bogus medical test, cancels that, get yanked from the card like 10 days ahead of time, which that was, and then of course like a week later they go, oh yeah, oops, sorry about that, and of course that doesn't fix anything. And then wait, train, finally get a great opponent in Dan Ige, the ranked fight that I was looking for, waiting for a very long time. And then for the first time in a decade, I get hurt. And you go, you got to be kidding me. And but honestly, that was a little bit of a blessing in disguise, I think, because I had a lot of nagging injuries and I had a lot of little things physically that were tough. And having to go to PT every single day, or maybe 4 days a week, for about 3 months straight to try to get everything right. I almost tore my hip flexor off of my femur 3/4 of the way, so managed to avoid surgery. But I really took the time to get everything right physically, and I feel a lot better, and it was extra opportunity to continue to improve tactically, technically, and that's been a fantastic thing. I'm just happy to be here. It's been a long time, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, you definitely have a positive outlook about it. And like you said, it's been a bad year for a lot of people. But was there any part along this last 2 years you thought like, is this even worth it anymore? I'm not even getting to compete. Like, what am I doing? What am I chasing after?
I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't, like days or moments where you're sitting there and you're a little bit, more frustrated than usual, kind of wondering, you realize it's things like that make me realize how much of everything is outside of all of our control. You work hard, you do your best, but that's life in a nutshell, man. It's like so many of the things that work out could have gone the other way, and it's easy for, all the things that have ever worked out in my life are because I'm awesome, and all the things that don't work out is because I got cheated. But that's a ridiculous way to look at things. So many of the things, you just try your best, you work hard, you do the things that you can do, and they will shake out as they will. And I think fighting is similar to that. All the fights that I had, I haven't lost in a long time. I've done my best when I have been in the ring, but every single person I've ever fought could have come out with a W under different circumstances. And any time that I've struggled, I could have done a lot better. So it's just a reminder that that's just the nature of everything. And a lot of times things look different from a distance, and that can be distracting. I guess almost like from a fan perspective, you act like if you won, you would always win. If you lost, you'd never beat that guy. Neither of those things are true. So this has just been a good reminder. I'm excited to be here. Friends and family have helped me so much. I couldn't be here without their push, and I'm just thankful.
That was very well said. Look, I know you called out everybody in the division, and we're looking for the ranked matchup. You get Ilia. I guess at this point you fight anybody, right, just to fight. But what do you think of the matchup? Because stylistically, it does look like it's a pretty intriguing matchup.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think Ilia is a great opponent. He's very tough. He brings a lot of skills to the table, and I was initially told when I got bumped from the rankings due to inactivity that was, beyond my control. I wasn't turning down fights. I was begging for fights, and I got crickets for the most part. And then the ones that did come up, were torpedoed for frustrating and, again, not my, doing. But anyway, when I was told I would be able to fight back in the rankings, I was excited, but due to timing, who's available, that wasn't on the list. And they asked about Ilia Topuria. I looked up who he was. I'd seen him fight prior. He's a very tough guy. I came here to fight the best. He represents a great challenge and a great opponent, and that's why I signed up immediately. I don't turn down fights. If you're good, if you're tough, I don't care who you are. I will fight you. If you're yelling about me and you're not very good, you can buzz right off. But as far as Ilia, he's a tough opponent. I think he's top class. I think that he's as good as many people in the top 15 already. And I look forward to competing against a big challenge on Saturday. And if we come out of there with a good outcome, I want to get right back in. And as far as I'm concerned, I am in the top 10 right now, because you look at how many people have been bumped out. Where I was ahead, we've got people that beat guys that were outside of the top 10 that are now 9, 10, 11, 12. That's fantastic. I'm glad for them. But I'm effectively at that same spot, had it not been for, circumstance. So I would look forward to getting back in and, and sorting out some of that unfinished business. But regardless, I look forward to competing again and again and again in quick succession, as long as I make it out of these things relatively unscathed.
Nice. And I was going to say, last thing for me, it sounds like you do kind of want to fight frequently, maybe make up for a little bit of lost time. But, do you feel like you're going to have to go on the Rampage again, calling people out, or are you hoping that people step up to the plate this time?
I think at a certain point, if you put together enough sustained success, people should not be allowed to say no to you. And also, the whole too high risk, high reward. I'm like, get out of my face with that nonsense. And the other thing is, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, because I know how good Ilia Topuria is. I know how tough he is. But the fact of the matter is, he's only 2-0 in the UFC, and he just got in recently. And I'm willing. I can't ask other people to do things that I'm not willing to do. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm here to face the best challenges possible. I think that I represent a lot of that to a lot of people, but Ilia represents that to me, and that's why I immediately signed up. And if I put my money where my mouth is and I come out of that with the right direction, I think that kind of demonstrates that other people in my mind ought to be doing the same thing. But regardless, I'm going to fight with everything that I can. I will play with all my skills on Saturday. I'll give it everything I got, and we're going to move forward in the positive direction, win, lose, or draw.
Ryan, right behind him.
Hey, Luke.
Hey, man. Excuse me. Actually, can you come back to me real quick? I'm sorry.
For sure, dude. Hey.
Ilia's done some interviews leading up to this fight saying, he trains with 30 black belts all the time. He has 7 or 8 submission wins in his 10 pro careers. So for those, and he's obviously boasting about his grappling skills too. For those that aren't familiar with the different aspects of jiu-jitsu, how would you compare his grappling skills to yours inside the octagon?
A fight's a fight, and I'm glad that Ilia's confident. If he weren't, he wouldn't belong here. But I'm absolutely one of the best grapplers, the best grappler in MMA, and I'm just here to compete. I haven't had the opportunity to demonstrate that very often because of lacking opponents. But I'll look forward to putting that into practice on Saturday. And if he wants to test his grappling, I think I'm the right guy for it. I'm sure he's good. I've seen what he's done, but the reality is I've been at a very high level for a very long time. I've been working hard. I've been improving since I've been at that level, and I just look forward to the challenge that he brings.
You said you would be fine of him testing his grappling against you, but what if this fight stays standing? How have you watched any of his striking at all, and are you impressed with his striking?
Oh, of course, yeah. No, Ilia's very tough. I'd say a lot of times MMA is interesting because I think a lot of people have to convince themselves that the other guy isn't very good, in order to get in there. And I don't think that. I think every single person that I've fought, from Artem, was a tough, particularly tough for me at the time relative to my, my skills. And a lot of times you're not your record. You are what you bring into the ring. You are your skills. I mean, you watch, Artem Lobov have a 5-round main event with Cub Swanson. It was close to the top of the division at the time. And it was, obviously Cub's fight, but it was not uncompetitive. So I guess I would say is, I've fought nothing but tough guys. Ilia is another in that long chain of that. I've competed against the very best in jiu-jitsu for a long time. I continue to train with these people. I continue to train with some of the best MMA fighters in the world. One of my closest friends and training partners and coaches, Tan Lee, is a ONE FC champion at featherweight, and again has knocked out more people than I can count. I can't count very high, but it's still a high number. The idea is just, I haven't been outstruck in any of my fights, and that doesn't mean that that's impossible. But there's this continuing narrative that I'm not a good striker. I'm not Stephen Thompson. I don't need to tell anybody that. But I'm a lot better than people give me credit for, and I think maybe it makes them feel better to go to sleep at night if they tell themselves or others that I don't bring much to the table there. I'm not a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm a mixed martial artist, and I have been for a long time, and I do my best to grow and improve. And, whether this fight is on the feet, on the ground, or some combination of the above, I look forward to employing every bit of skill that I have.
And finally, I just want to get your thoughts, not related to this fight, but the last 2 pay-per-views, we saw Jacare's arm get snapped in half, and then we saw Jamal Hill's arm at the time it looked like it was broken, but it was dislocated. So
that's not a big deal, huh?
Yeah, right? Just hanging off his body. So what do you make of this rise of fighters that are getting these serious injuries, recently? Because it happened the last 2 pay-per-views.
I mean, if you're willing to step into a cage and fight another man or another woman for money in front of God knows how many people, both present physically and also watching. There's a level of bravery, courage, physical durability, toughness, belief that is required to do that, particularly at this level. And that's another one of the reasons. I'm not here to disrespect anybody. I respect every single one of my opponents for their willingness to get in, win, lose, or draw every single time. And and also for their skills that they bring. Every single person that I've fought is dangerous, and when you when you know that about the other person, everyone has the chance to beat everyone else. And also, people are there. This is not a grappling match. I love grappling. I love jiu-jitsu, but sometimes people, and this isn't a slap grappling match either. It's a serious business. You can get hurt in there. And when you go in with a mentality that is necessary to perform at that level, sometimes injury occurs. I think in both of those cases, the gloves played a big role. And that is an interesting difference between, let's say, for instance, submission grappling and mixed martial arts. It's like you got a little brick on the end of your hand, and if that thing gets caught in a weird way, you can be SOL. But I don't know. I think that, that's a small sample size, and it's tough to make any sort of, grand statements beyond ouch. But, both Jacare and Jamal are very, very tough. And, that's just the risk that's the cost of doing business, I think. And I'm just glad to see that both people are on the mend.
One final thing. A lot of people are blaming the ref for the Jamal Hill. They say he maybe missed the tap, or they should have stopped it sooner when he saw his arm. Where do you fall on that argument?
I don't have the fight right in front of me, so I can't say it. But I think a lot of times people end up blaming the referee. The refs have a tough job. You stop it too early, people freak out. You stop it too late, people freak out. Obviously this is serious business, and you are getting hit in the head. You try to limit that. You do have the possibility of having a joint injured. But I would always prefer to have extra time to fight. I don't want anyone stopping my fights. If that means that I take an extra 5-10 punches, I would love for that not to happen. But I got to be honest, I want the opportunity to continue. I mean, look at Ben Askren versus Robbie Lawler. What a fight! You could have easily stopped that one without any complaint partway through. And, when Ben was in trouble, and they didn't. And then, look, he managed to rescue himself, come out, in a good situation. Then they stopped it again. But I think that was probably, or stopped it in that case, but I think that was probably a reasonable stoppage that wouldn't have impacted the outcome in all likelihood. But I guess as an athlete, I would always prefer for the opportunity to bail myself out. So I recognize that when I get myself involved and I say something like that, that comes with a cost. It's like if I want to complain about having some mild degree of head trauma later in my life, I mean, what did I not expect that this might be on the list? So I would say that's part of the reason that I fight the way that I do, is you recognize that it's, what do they say in Princess Bride? You studied, and in studying you learned that man is mortal. That's the first lesson of fighting, is that you can be hurt, and that you can be killed, and that you can be hurt sometimes not in the moment, but very long term. And I try to take that seriously. But, when you're in the moment, sometimes you suspend that in pursuit of the W.
Ryan, one more time here. Sorry.
Sure.
To the best of your assessment, why do you think you've been so avoided when looking for fights?
Man, it is, Luke. It's hard. I don't live in anyone else's head, and I think a lot of times, a lot of the mistakes that I've made in my life come from speculating about the inner workings of other people's minds. And sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm wrong. But a lot of times I'll go to the danger is to go to an uncharitable place. What I would say is just that it's been happening. There's no question it's been happening. I think that I am, by far the most unique fighter in the top 15, 20, whatever you want to say, just in terms of skill set, approach. So I get why people go, even if you had the resources to try to go and get yourself involved, you're like, well, why do I want to do this thing when I could do something I'm more familiar with? I get where that's coming from, but from a sporting perspective, that's unacceptable. I'm a martial artist. I would take all of the biggest challenges, the most unique challenges. Honestly, those are particularly interesting to me. I understand if people feel differently, but I think that they should be made to fight. And I would just say that I can't say exactly why people are avoiding it, but I think the time of that is hopefully coming to an end.
And in terms of your grappling, certainly your place among the best grapplers in MMA is there. But I guess I wonder, when you think about the game and your value add there, what you're doing that your contemporaries, even very good grapplers, are not doing, what is your edge there? How do you view what you do that the game is kind of missing at large?
Well, all I can say is that I'm trying to fight in a way that is meaningful to me and makes sense to me and accomplishes my goals. And my goal is to come here and to play with everything that I have. My goal is to win. My goal is to hit and not be hit. My goal is to play to dominate. And dominate, a lot of times I've been in jiu-jitsu matches that I've lost and won 2-0 that were completely one-sided, and I've been in ones that were 15-2 that were a scrap. And it's not always, the score does not always tell the tale. I guess I would just say, like a knockout doesn't always. There's plenty of matches that end in submission or end in a knockout that were not under control. And then there's fights that go the entire time. I think Max Holloway does a great job of this. Oftentimes you're like, man, this guy's in a 5-round fight, but he's in control seemingly the whole time. And it's Stephen Thompson, the same kind of thing. You know, it's brilliant to watch when you watch Adesanya, when you watch these guys, Valentina, you watch some of the best guys and girls doing their thing. So I would say that I try to bring a tactical, and a strategic understanding that allows me to do these things. And I think that a lot of times the mistake that many of us can make is breadth over depth. You know, I don't want to be an inch deep, a mile wide. If I had to pick one or the other, I'd rather go the other way. Fortunately, you don't have to pick one or the other. So I've done my best to seek out many of the best martial artists and coaches in the world. And I said, hey, I'm not good enough. What do I need to do? How can I improve? And then I respect all of their opinion, and I take their advice, and I do my best to execute what they're advising me to do in a way that seems authentic to me and feels right for how I move, how I feel, how I think. And also I'm willing to be embarrassed. You know, every single time I go out, I'm doing stuff that other people aren't doing, which means that when it works, generally speaking, it's written off as a gimmick. And if it doesn't work, if I get beat up, everyone's gonna say, ha ha ha, you nerd, you should have just double-legged everybody. And then I go, well, I don't think that would have worked for me either. So I just say that I think that when Conor McGregor's fighting at his best, I think when many people are fighting at their best, they're willing to take that risk of being out on an island, being embarrassed, being different. But that's always the sort of thing that I think pushes the game, or pushes any game forward. And then 10, 15 years on down the line, we forget that person was out on their own saying and doing things that were a little bit different. And we go, yeah, well, of course, we all know. And then you're like, yeah, well, maybe. So I guess I would just say I do my best. I have the courage to be different, and I will display that on Saturday night.
Can I ask you what it means back here in the back?
Oh, sorry, sure thing. Hey.
How you doing? Can I ask you what it means to be on this fight card? It's back, sold out T-Mobile Arena, first fight card back here in the fight capital of the world, with a sold out with crowd after the pandemic. Just your thoughts, and being on the McGregor card. Just what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's neat. There's no question that it's obviously it's a big event. I've never been a part of something like this going on right now. So and it's not even fight night yet. So I would say it's definitely a neat thing. But the reality is that it doesn't affect anything for me. There could be 10 million people. There could be no people. There's not any different. If someone starts to throw a pointed stick or a bottle into the ring and you're allowed to pick it up and use it, that would be different. But it's just you and the other guy and a referee and a ring, and that's all there is to it. I'll do my best. I'll play with everything that I have, and I'll walk in and out of that ring with my head held high, regardless of the outcome, because I know that I've prepared with everything that I have. I'll fight with everything that I have, and no matter what, I'm going to move forward in a positive direction and go back and do it again. So, intellectually, I understand that it is neat to be a part of something like this, and I've never done that before. But the reality is that mechanically, there's no difference whatsoever.
And just having the fans back, though, after the long layoff, and just having someone there is pretty unique and special, I guess, after a year off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely happy for the UFC, for the fans. It's always it's a neater thing. I mean, as a fan of the sport and sport in general, it's nice to see fans back in the arenas. For obviously Euro Championship is going on right now, and it's a different game when people are in there as a fan. But as a performer, as a player, there is no difference. I don't care if we decide to fight in that hallway or out in this parking lot. I would make a minor adjustment for the hallway or the parking lot just because the floor's harder. That's a real thing. But as long as if they park the octagon out there, I mean, it's 6 1/2 dozen. I'm glad for everybody. I'm glad for the UFC. It's nice to see a return to at least quasi-normalcy. But again, there is no difference.
Final question. Can I ask you what your thoughts would be on the commission no longer testing for marijuana? Just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think that that's the sort of thing that should be. It's an interesting thing. There's always, whether it's laws, federally, locally, or commissions doing their thing. A lot of times they're not necessarily in step with how people are, or the people with a capital P. And I guess, to see people, obviously, that we had a sprinter, recently she lost her opportunity to compete in the Olympics. As a result of that, I think that's insanity. I understand that the rules are the rules, and there's a certain level of that, but I think that, this needs to be changed. I don't have a dog in the fight at this point, but it's one where you go, hey man, it's just, is this a big deal? Yes, then fine. Is this a big deal? No, then what are we doing here? I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that adjusted, and I'm glad to see the softening. Again, I'm a big freedom guy. If you want to go hurt yourself, I would strongly advise you not to do it. But hey, man, if you want to jump off of that bridge, that's on you. If you want to go smoke 15 pounds of weed every single day, that's on you. You want to sell it to my kid, we're going to have a problem. But other than that, it's just basically, are you injuring anyone, and are you taking an unfair advantage? No? Then it's not my concern what you're up to. And I'd like to see commissions, I'd like to see laws reflect that.
Ryan over here on your left, just over here.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Good. So you talked at length about how you had a long layoff, and it wasn't anything that you did. It was about a bunch of external factors that led to that. I'm just curious about, do you plan on competing more after this fight, win or lose?
Oh, you're damn right.
And how do you plan to combat ring rust in this fight?
Ring rust is not a real thing.
Last thing from me, I want to get your thoughts and predictions on the main event.
I think there's going to be a great fight. Conor is obviously, we know who Conor is and what he's done. The sport wouldn't be what it is at this point were it not for Conor McGregor, and that's just the truth. Dustin Poirier is a fantastic champion in his own right and has come so far. It's neat to see sometimes when people, they meet early on in their career, and because they were both trending upwards at that time and continue to, but it's a lot of things have happened in that way. It's neat to see how both have grown. Conor has altered the landscape in a very real way, but he also adjusted the landscape on a technical and tactical level in a certain regard. And it was interesting to see him move away from that in his last fight, his most recent fight. Obviously, he's been getting himself in boxing more, and he was maybe having his eyes on a boxing match as well. But the reality is, this is not a boxing fight. This is not a grappling match. This is not a kickboxing match. Even though it can oftentimes, two people can get in there and they almost look like they made an unspoken agreement to do that thing, and it'll end up looking similar. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think that was an interesting, exclamation mark on the last fight, because it looked like one person had an idea that he was going to go in there and run somebody over, and then the other guy decided that this was an MMA fight. Both people have great technical resources. Both are very tough guys. I'm looking forward to a fantastic fight, and I'm sure that Conor will make some adjustments, and that when he does, Dustin will make counter adjustments. I would just say that, I think this sport's a very interesting place with Conor McGregor in it, so I'd like to see him stick around for as long as possible, Dustin as well. I'm just looking forward to a great main event.
Thanks, Ryan.
Sure.
Ryan, can you share some of your why is ring rust not real?
Why is it real?
Trainers in boxers have said it. Certain fights, there's no unanimity, but some athletes do swear by it.
Yeah, I guess I think your mind makes things real. If you forget what it's like to compete, that's an issue. But it's like, let's say I've had coaches tell me, like, hey, if you don't feel nervous, you should be nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I was calm. And then you're like, wait a minute. What do they say? It's you can never walk in the same river twice, because even if the river's the same, you're not the same man, you're not the same person. So the reality is that I would just say that I've got more experience in my life. I've competed a lot in my life. I haven't been in the ring in a while, but I hadn't been in the ring in a while against BJ. I hadn't been in the ring a ton before the Elkins fight. I hadn't been in the ring in a while before the Gray fight. Had been a year. I hadn't been in the ring in a while between my last fight regionally and the Ultimate Fighter fight. It had been a year. Each time at those times I was about to walk away from the sport to go do something else, because I didn't perceive a path to where I was hoping to be. But all I can say is that I'll be calm, be composed, and play with everything that I have. I think a lot of times fighters, we're all people, and I'm no different than anybody else. We can all be superstitious, but people want to come up with reasons for why things happen, and have like let's just bottle it up in like power or ring rust or something. Like people tell me, man, why don't you go out and just finish everybody like against BJ? And I'm like, oh, am I allowed to do that? Oh, no way. It's ridiculous. Everything is a time and a place. And, like you zig when you should have zagged, you do the reverse. Everything's different. People miss punches all the time, and they go, yeah, slip that. I'm like, no, dude, the other guy just missed. Like there was one against Elkins that I got my hair cut like almost, and I didn't see that one, man. And that was a fight that I think I dominated for 14 minutes and 57 seconds, but definitely not those 3 seconds. And I got away with one. And what would have happened if I got hit in the head? I don't know. I wouldn't love it, I'll tell you that much. But would it have impacted the fight? Very possibly, maybe not. There's certain people in MMA and in anything, you see, they could get hit in the head with a sledgehammer and they seem to be fine. And then oftentimes the wheels fall off at a certain point. But people want to come up with some sort of like tidy phrase for why things happen, that we can just write it off and I don't have to think anymore. And I think that's honestly, that happens in martial arts, that happens in everything. And that's why oftentimes I think that activities don't push forward and understanding doesn't deepen. And I would just say, no matter how I feel on Saturday, I will breathe, I will be calm, and I will play with everything that I have on the night. And, if I come out with a good outcome, that's fantastic. And that's what I fully, will work to do and expect to do. But if I come out with a not great outcome, I will, I'll accept that. I'll move forward. I'll make the adjustment that I need to make. And it'll be because I did things physically. We live in a material world. Ring rust is this like weird specter that I want to write off. Oh, it's not my fault. Nobody has ever gotten caught with a punch. You were either standing in a place you could be hit or you were not. None of you can punch me now. And it's not down to lack of skill, and all of you guys could beat me up, but you'd have to come over here to do it. So I would just say a lot of times I think there's a narrative adjusting that goes on, and I think fighters do this a lot, particularly because of the small sample size of fighting. I mean, you beat somebody once, people act like it would always happen, or you lose once, particularly like decisively or seemingly decisively. People act like it would happen all the time. I mean, just look at basketball. I mean, 7 games. Can you imagine they played 100 games? Who's to say we'll win? But March Madness is wild because of what? It's a one-off. Fighting is wild because it's a one-off, and it's also a more volatile game in terms of its ability to end in an instant. But I think that because of the very small sample size nature, it allows for a lot of witchcraft in people's mind, and I just don't buy into that. I hope that makes sense. Yo.
One more. I think you went to South Carolina to train with Stephen Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what was the thought process with that? Was it mutual? What did you get? What did he get?
The thought process is, hey, there's Stephen Thompson. He's awesome. Wait a minute, he's my buddy. I should go hang out there, and we should train martial arts. And Stephen's one of the best strikers in mixed martial arts and has been for a long time. We met in 2012, my first trip to TriStar. I met him and his father, Ray, and I started training with Stephen on a very consistent basis, I think 2013, 2014. And, anytime you have the opportunity to go and be around, good friends, good people, and also some of the best martial artists in the world, I think that you take that opportunity with both hands. And so it was a pleasure to be down there. I try to be useful for Stephen, as a grappling, kind of dummy, particularly given that he's fighting someone who's great in Gilbert Burns. It's pretty cool that he gets to be Stephen Thompson, and the fight starts where Stephen Thompson is Stephen Thompson, most of all. And, I would love to have fights start on the ground. Can you imagine if Damian Maia got to start on top of people? That'd be pretty cool. But for Damian. But anyway, it's that is what it is, and Stephen is just unbelievable. And I don't know if anything that we went over is going to come up in the fight, but I know that the things that Stephen helps me with always do, because again, that's where the fight starts for me. I don't have an option of avoiding that portion of the engagement. And I would just say that I hope I'm always helpful, but I'm definitely thankful to be there. I'm thankful for them as my friends and my training partners and coaches. And I'll look forward to, as a fan, watching Stephen's fight and cheering him on after mine. Thanks, guys.